Ahoy! Michael Tillinger here, and welcome to one of the most frequently visited stone circles here in Waterfallboven, South Africa, what we call the Anunnaki Welcome Circle, one of the earliest landing sites of the Anunnaki here on Earth. This is some of the work they left behind. Obviously, this has seen thousands and thousands of years of reuse and reused by more recent civilizations, but fortunately I'm here with my good friend John Paul, or EagleHeart, all the way from Melbourne, Australia, who's a shaman, and we're going to discuss much of the information, the downloads and the site whispering that John Paul has received in his journeys to this particular stone circle. And also he has spent 3 nights here on his own connecting with the site. So he has downloaded and connected to the site in ways that very few people have. In fact, no one else I know has done what he has done. So I look forward to sharing this information with him and what we can learn from him. Welcome, John Paul. EagleHeart, all the way from Australia. Just for people that don't know you, just give us a bit of background about your shamanic training.
So the training is pretty standard, traditional native North American. So it would be tribes in North America all the way from Canada through to the US. So that was the training 32 years ago now.
32 years ago. So anyone that wants to become a shaman, this is not something that happens overnight.
No. So in the traditional path for me, it was a year and a day. So you're passed from medicine teacher to medicine teacher for a year and a day. And then at the end of that, you go on a big vision quest and you have your healing songs and you have your purpose.
Yeah. And now you're passing some of those techniques and the training to my fiance, Emma Jane.
Yes.
Yeah. And she's becoming a fully fledged shaman quite quickly.
Absolutely. So she's a bit of a special case. So she's that Irish heritage and all of that magic that comes from Ireland as well as her own abilities.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are in this incredible stone circle, and we can sit here and talk to camera because it takes a lot of time and effort and money to clear these stone circles, which allows us to come in here. This is one of the cleaner internal structures of a very large stone circle. This particular one is 150 meters across, just for
each half.
Yeah, each half. So for people watching this, we are sitting inside a giant machine, and we're probably being healed as we are doing this.
We're accepting the major amount of the frequency. The frequency is always strongest inside any of the circles. And then if the walls are intact, what we found is that it's about 3 meters or so outside of that you still have the frequency, but it's strongest inside. But as you said, oftentimes, and they've said to me, you're never supposed to be inside. It's too noisy in there.
Yeah. Interesting. One of the recent stone circle research groups that I had, one of the people on that journey with me said that the moment they walked into the stone circle, it wasn't this one, it was actually all of them, but the first one they experienced, the moment they walked in, they heard noise in their ears. It was like, you know, ringing in their ears and noise in their ears, which is interesting. Like you said, it's too noisy in there. It's a machine.
The very first circle you brought me to, down at the bottom of the hill, I went in and tried to find a very quiet place, and I sat down next to a wall, and it was just this loud kind of white noise.
Yeah.
And the spirit said to me, come outside. It's easier to talk outside.
So look, there's so much to discuss. Obviously, there's the origins of the stone circles, the Anunnaki connection,
the energy,
why it was built, for what purposes it was built, and so forth. And this particular stone circle is very special, as you deduced from your connection with the guardians, the spirit guardians of the stone circle. So why don't you just tell us more about that?
Well, when we first got here, the very first trip here, we stopped on a hill where you can look down and see these 2 conjoined circles. And the spirit that met us was this welcome. It was an Anunnaki, very, very tall spirit that was kind of the host, and his job was to welcome people to this site. Because from this particular vantage point, you can look at all the hills and you can see all of the constructions that they had on each of these hills, which is just a fragment of the total picture. But they were so proud of the work here. And this is where they were doing so many of the DNA control experiments. So the circle we're in right now is where they were working on plant DNA. So they were modifying plants that were here for their own diet, and they were modifying their plants to be able to grow here.
Okay, so this is why we call it the Anunnaki Welcome Circle, for that reason. And it consists of the channel that runs in, as all stone circles have channels that connect them to other stone circles. No stone circle stands alone, for those that aren't aware of that yet. It's a one giant grid of circles all connected to each other. And this one, the channel comes in from down that side where we normally park the cars, and it runs into the stone circle, and then there are two big stone circles. The channel runs in, and there's a stone circle on this side and one on this side. And we're now sitting not quite in the center of the stone circle that you said they were doing plant DNA research in here, and experimentation and cloning and all that. And the circle on the other side of the channel that runs in, that's where they were doing animal and human and animal DNA experiments. There's just so much to talk about, but just
talk a little bit about why the toroidal field. So when you've got a circle like this that we see flat and we see a circle, but what's really going on here is this toroidal energy. So maybe explain how these circles form that.
Yes. So first of all, for those that haven't yet figured out the what I call the nature of reality, and the real big aha moment realization that everything in our nature reality, everything in the reality we find ourselves in this density of our planet, this 3D density, and beyond, but everything manifests in physical form, and everything manifests, whether it's physical or non-physical, or whether it's atoms, galaxies, the Earth, the solar system, atoms and molecules, etc., etc. Everything manifests in toroidal shape. And it starts with sound. Sound itself, when sound comes as a source of creation, and sound, resonance, and frequency are the sources of creation, of physical manifestation, that manifests in a toroidal field, a perfectly, beautifully balanced torus. Energy coming in from the top and energy coming in from the bottom in opposing directions. It's the same energy. It's not positive and negative. It's the same energy moving in opposite directions, and we've misunderstood it as positive and negative. But these perfectly balanced torus fields become magnetic fields, perfectly balanced magnetic fields, and then that moving magnetic fields give rise to electromagnetic fields. And here we have a very simple progression of understanding of the manifestation of matter out of sound and resonance. But to explain what's going on with these stone circles is very simple, really. And that's also why so many people since 2007, since I've started coming here, started to experience incredible healing in the stone circle.
Physical changes.
Physical healing. And we have 1 month of daily body function measurements, vital body statistics, from heart rate, blood pressure,
blood oxygen level,
retina response, temperature, and many other, about a list of about 8 different vital bodily functions that over a period of 1 month we've took in the month of January 2018. John Paul was one of those 12 people that were here, and the conclusion was that exposure to the stone circles has a beneficial effect to human physiology and human body. And this is why we now know beyond any doubt that the circles have brought healing to many people, as many people, probably way over 100 people that have responded to me and told me how they experienced healing of some disease that they had, whether it was asthma or allergy or some skin disease or heart palpitations, high blood pressure, and the most important one was cancer. A full-blown case of cancer that a particular woman that came on 2 journeys, sacred sites journeys, John Paul was one of them, was one of those journeys, and this particular woman experienced full recovery from full-blown cancer that she believed she was told she was going to die from. So again, to come back to the toroidal fields, it's all connected. So sometimes we rush off in this direction and go there because it's so easy to get lost in this field of research, because everything is connected, and once you realize how everything is connected, it's so easy to slip down a different path in the discussion.
But I think it's important to understand that each of these circles, so, there's an outer circle that forms one particular toroidal shape, and then each of the circles within that, and that forms, a grid pattern of these fields that are, all connected, all somewhat conjoined, but we're sitting inside a field. So it's not that there's something round and flat.
No.
It's actually spherical, and it's as far below as it is above.
So the other important thing that I'm not even sure if I've mentioned this to you, when I first started researching these stone circles in 2007, and we were flying around in the helicopter for a whole weekend, one of the things I noticed, which puzzled me, was that the walls of the stone circles, the original exterior walls, are not flat. They run like this.
This undulating.
Undulating like a wave around. And then I was wondering, why would anybody build a wall that undulates like this? Well, once you realize we're dealing with sound, resonance, and frequency, and that the stone circles are the representation of the shape of the sound, or what's referred to as the cymatic shape, or the cymatic pattern that comes out of the earth at that specific point, that is why, because these are machines. Every stone circle is just an amplifier. It's an amplification device to take the subtle frequencies of the earth. The stones are packed on the shape of that sound as it manifests on the surface here, and that immediately creates an amplification device. And that amplification of the natural earth frequencies is what brings our bodies into natural harmony and resonance and coherence with the earth. And this is why people experience miraculous healing from all kinds of diseases.
Yeah, we live a life that's disconnected from those natural frequencies of the earth. So if you come here and you're in an amplified sphere of that,
yeah,
everything starts to align.
So I want to come back to your experience, your 3 nights that you spent here in a tent. John Paul came up here. We dropped him off in his little backpack in a tent, and he went into the wild. It wasn't as clear as this. It was all overgrown. It was wild. There were actually reasonably large trees here and weeds and bushes, so he couldn't really come into the center. So tell us what happened.
So in my tradition, you do what's called a vision quest. So you come and you fast and pray and you call for a vision. So you can be anywhere. And, I've done this in so many places where you come and you say, I'm going to commit to fasting and prayer for 3 days and 3 nights in the hopes that I'm able to make contact the spirit of the place. So there's a very funny beginning to this story, which was being knocked out for 13 hours.
Wow.
So the first day I sort of missed because I was in my tent thinking, I'm feeling a little, and I blacked out. And when I came to, I thought, oh, I fainted or something, it could be very strong energy. I don't know what this is. And when I checked, my watch had been 13 hours.
Wow, I forgot. I remember you telling me that, but I forgot. And that's a very important piece of the story.
Yeah. So that was, taking everything that was my resonance and connecting it, however long it took, to make sure that it's in line, harmonized, synchronized to these frequencies. So when I crawled out of my tent going, oh my God, it's been 13 hours, there were 4 Anunnaki just hanging there waiting, and they just were waiting, and they said to me, so you wanted to have a chat. So for the next 3 days, they were my constant companions, and we did everything from, can I see what this looked like when it was actually in full operation? Can you explain what you were doing in this particular circle?
So what many people would want to know immediately, because you said there were 3 or 4 Anunnaki?
Yeah,
4 Anunnaki hanging there waiting to talk to you. The first thing that most people want to know, what do they look like? Did you actually see them in like a weird dimension, or were they just energetic forms?
So it's a bit of both. So my particular sight whisper thing is, if it's Thursday today in 2019, what I do is, it seems like the veil moves away and it's Thursday in whatever year. So I don't necessarily meet a spirit that's the incredibly wise or the incredible guide or the knowledgeable. I'm just seeing whoever's there.
Okay.
So these 4 were engineers that were here working on this project. So I don't seem to get that kind of disconnected top view. I'm right in there. And this is whoever's here today doing whatever they're doing. So they're hanging, but because of what gets created by the control of the atmosphere here, they can manipulate gravity within this space quite easily. So they're hanging there, physically hanging there because gravity is not operating the way it does for us here today. But similarly, because they're in another dimension. Yeah. So I'm accessing a parallel reality of this space in a different time. So they were quite tall. I would have guessed 9-ish, 10-ish feet in height. They were much, much, much taller than me. They said, look, we can look however you are comfortable for us to look. But basically, they were humanoid shaped, 2 arms, 2 legs, a trunk, a head. And later on, I would never see their faces very clearly. And it was at the end of the 3rd day, I said to them, so I've never really seen your faces very clearly. And they said, well, you won't like what you see. And I said, look, we've been together for 3 days. I think I can cope. And they said, okay. So that was when I finally got to see their faces. And it was not the human-looking face that we have. But they said, you know, we can make us appear to be whatever you want to look like.
Yeah.
So they were dressed in kind of just one long robe. You could see their arms. There weren't sleeves to them, so they were kind of tunicky tops. They had a very human-looking arm, 5 fingers, but it was just a long sort of belted tunic, and it had kind of like an apron piece on the front. But I understood that that was because they were dealing with atomically altered water and things, and there was splashage, so they were, you know, they had a protection kind of apron thing.
Yeah, protection from 3D fallout.
Yeah. And so what was hanging in these circles was suspended water. And they would change the atomic weight of the water depending on the experiment that they were doing. So the circle that I did the most work on was where they were taking a plant that they had modified, and they did very delicate DNA modifications. But then you'd have to do something to make that hold, so that once the plant wouldn't just revert back or it wouldn't lose this delicate thing. And they would suspend the plant or the DNA or the seed or whatever in this bath. And they said it was the combination of the resonance of the rock, the particular sound of the rock, water, and sometimes the water was altered, and sunlight. And that would hold. So when I said to them, well, how can we use this circle? Is there anything we could do with this circle? And they said, sure. Anybody who'd had any procedure, so a broken bone, any medical procedure, counseling, where you had decided to let go of something, if you came into that circle and you had water, sunlight, and the frequency, whatever work had been done would now hold. So I'm very excited to explore the rest of these circles and see if we can figure out, get help from them to say, well, how can we use this healing energy? What can we do with these particular tones of these stones that all ring?
There's so much information. You spent 3 nights here. You wrote down a lot of material. You also recorded stuff, right, for yourself, and you transcribed all that, right? So hopefully in some of these recordings we can go through your experiences and share it, so people can experience it, us talking about it and unpacking and analyzing some of the things to the best of our analytical skills or abilities that we have. And see what wisdom we can share with those watching these videos. Anything else and important that you think we should share in this first introductory video?
I think it's the kind of the journey that you and I are embarking on now, which is about sound frequency. Because what's left here are these stones. So we know about the electromagnetic field of the stones. We know about that. The thing that I think is going to be really fun to unpack is what happens when we release these tones, right? So we've sampled one circle, and we found that the dominant pitch is 147 hertz. And when you start to unpack 147 and the mirror solfeggio frequencies of 147, you understand that it's particularly good for the spleen. You find that there are particular healing properties to these solfeggio frequencies. So I think the journey now is, what are all the rest of these sounds? And what do we do with these sounds? And do we need them to be the stones? Can we just understand and learn about the frequencies? There's so much healing, unpacking to do with these particular ringing stones.
Yeah, we spent a little bit of time today recording, maybe 100 or so ringing stones. We're going to be recording a lot more while you're here. And then we're going to be putting together a journey for future workshops and journeys of healing and wellness, both physical and spiritual, to bring people to the stone circles and do more experiments, do more research while we experience the healing properties of the stone circles. And I have reached a stage now where I feel basically 100% confident to tell people, if you have any kind of disease, any problem, medical health problems, come visit us. Come and stay at Stone Circle Lodge. Book in for a week or two. We'll drive you up the stone circles every day. We put together a different package for you. Take you to a different stone circle every day. Spend a few hours there. Experience the healing, and come on a health retreat. A very different kind of health retreat using the ancient technology, which is the most basic and primary form of healing through sound, resonance, vibration, frequency.
It is. Sound healing is becoming the thing. People are realizing that we're out of sync, and it's a frequency.
Yeah.
It's not a pharmaceutical chemical. It's a frequency issue.
Well, ultimately, what the pharmaceutical chemicals do is they try and imitate the frequencies that would have been created by natural plants or a natural environment, but it has all these other side effects. But
Yeah.
it's a whole other discussion.
That's another.
Yeah. What else can we discuss here? Anything more significant or highly significant that you experienced that you can share in a few minutes from your 3 nights that you spent here? Also, I recall you saying that side there was like a retreat for the Anunnaki that were working here. They had a little place.
Homesick Hill.
Homesick Hill, yeah.
Yeah, in contacting them, I got to speak to so many of them because it's just the staff that's here. It's the team that's here. So there were other engineers, because some of the questions that I had were about, propulsion and how did you travel here and understanding of that. So they, connected me with other kinds of engineers that weren't necessarily doing the experiments in these circles. And they had a hill that was outside of the frequency of this, because they said this was very noisy. I said there was the noise of all the different ringing of the different tones of the different circles. I said it was quite loud.
Yeah.
So outside the outer wall, up on a hill that's out that direction, there's some beautiful stones, and there's a very large stone that has very deep, beautiful ringing tones. It's this beautiful slab that's suspended on 3 other stones, so it's held up so it resonates beautifully. And that is the tone that helps heal the heart. And that tone, because they said we are so far away from home, for many of us, we will never go back. We will never see our families again. We will never return home. We know that this, for many of us, is a one-way mission. So this was a place where they would go and be on the hill, and they would look up at the stars, and they would reimagine home and reconnect to home. And the tones of those rocks over there are for heart healing and for feeling okay and calming the self. And it's just a beautiful hill. And when you hear those tones, you can feel that your things just calm down for you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you reminded me, because when I'm undergoing a bit of stress and anxiety in these recent times, this is a place to come. Go sit there and sit next to this heart healing rock and just gently ring it, tap it, and zen out. Heal your heart.
Yep.
So that'll be one of the journeys we do here. Heal your heart with the Anunnaki heart healing stone.
But it is. This has been left here.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason why it's left here, still works. This is still functioning. I mean, I laugh when we, some of the people that we've met through these tours saying, well, we've got to figure out how to turn these on. Honey, they're on.
They're on all the time.
They're on. There's no switch. They're on.
Yeah.
All that's happened is some of the walls have fallen.
That's
so
it.
There's just a reduction.
Yeah, but
to
they're
the
still
energy.
working. This is why we're experiencing the healing. This is why we measure these weird anomalies of frequencies, sound frequencies, electromagnetic fields, magnetic fields, decibels in certain frequencies going through the walls, through the roof. We've obviously done a lot of research in the last 11 years that I've been here, since 2007. A lot of research, a lot of information. And all of this stuff here keeps coming back to the Anunnaki all the time. And all the psychics and channelers that have come through here since 2007, It's the repetitive story of this is the Anunnaki stronghold. This is what the Anunnaki did.
I think that's an important one to remember, is that of the people that I talk to, there's this complex, and then just on that hill that way, there's two other complexes, and that's where they were dealing with water and creating the water that was required, and also dealing with the waste.
Right.
And it was really important that one of the engineers that I spoke to said, he was really adamant and very strong, and he said, look, I don't like that we have such a negative reputation. Sure, we did lots of bad things. I own that. We're responsible for that. But we did good things. And we cleaned up after ourselves, and we removed all of our technology that was here when we left. And we took care of returning the water. We didn't leave just garbage. We didn't leave toxic waste. We didn't leave bad ruins. You know, we left cleanly, but we were doing incredible work here. And the things that we understood about dealing with atmospheric control and creating like a little biodome, that was incredible work. So he was really proud of the science that they had done here.
And that's ultimately my most recent conclusion that I've reached, that the giant complex of 10 million or more stone circles that cover southern Africa, which really is large parts of South Africa, large parts of Zimbabwe, it goes into Botswana, into Mozambique. This was a huge machine. This was probably the largest machine ever built on this earth of ours. I don't know of any other continuous group of ruins on earth that cover this size that we can see today. We're sitting in it, and we know where this connects to, and we know how far it goes that way and that way and that way, and then we lose it, but we then pick it up another 100 kilometers on the other side. So we know that this is a huge cluster, a network of ruins that goes on for thousands of kilometers, thousands of kilometers. Basically from where we are south to KwaZulu-Natal, all the way to the Eastern Cape, not so much, but across into the Free State in South Africa, then north through what was Northwest Province, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, all the way into Zimbabwe. We're talking about 2,000 kilometers.
And all the way west of Botswana.
Yeah, and west of Botswana as well. It's just huge. So my conclusion is that this structure was originally built to basically terraform, geoengineering, terraforming, creating a machine that will create a habitable climate and a habitable atmosphere, and probably and possibly putting more oxygen into the atmosphere. And I'll be talking a lot more about that in other lectures. Yeah.
But there was one of the sites we went to where they had circles and terraces, and they'd created all the terraces for growing, but it was all inside this controlled atmosphere that they were generating.
Yeah.
So part of this creates enough energy to change and make the atmosphere of the density you require.
Yes.
And so they jokingly or not so jokingly were saying these were kind of like the model homes to encourage other species to come here and say, look, you can create the atmosphere you need. This is all, we can build this for you.
And if you know how to manipulate magnetic fields, you create a force field. You don't need a roof. Your dwelling, your stone circle dwelling, creates its own magnetic shield. So you don't need a roof.
You're safe. You're protected.
You're protected against wind, elements, anything. Yeah, and much more serious protection or shelter than a hot tin roof would give you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of questions that we ask, and people that have come with me have asked questions, and they're saying, well, it's not science that you have. It's not a building technology that you have. It's not a jet propulsion technology that you have. So they said, we can try to explain this, but it's nothing that you don't have. We didn't do tin roofs.
No.
We didn't do walls and floors and cement.
And that remains a huge flaw in mainstream archaeology and geology and history explorers that keep looking for the fingerprints of civilizations and technology that looks like technology and home building the way we see it. So if it's not the way we see it, then it can't be advanced, when that's the furthest from the truth. In fact, we use Stone Age technology today. If you think about what people talk about, the most advanced engines in vehicles and cars, and that's still steam train technology. It still creates pressure, makes pistons go or rotors move, driven by pressure that's created either through exploding petrol or exploding steam. So, obviously the electric cars are different. That's a very different thing. But I'm talking about combustion engines, rockets, and fuel-driven vehicles.
Yes, the idea of little explosions driving. Yeah.
So, you know, our technology is steam train technology we use today, and people often don't really think about that.
Yeah.
We have made no progress since 1880.
Yeah. One of the questions was, how did these stones get put here? And I said, you know, was there armies of people that carried all the stones? And they kind of laughed and said, no. They said it would look a bit magical to you, but we create a vibrational field that draws these particular fossils, that's another topic,
Yes.
to come together because they have the same kind of magnetic density that we're looking for. So you create a vibration that filters out stones that don't have this, lets through the stones that do, and then we just gently shape them following these somatic patterns.
Into place.
They said, but it would look really magical, like, you know, wild levitation to you, but really, this is the way you do things.
Yes.
You don't actually
carry them. Yeah, that is a very important subject. And now the discovery of the fossils in January 2018, just more than a year ago, it's a game changer. It really is a game changer. And for the reason, we're not going to go into that now, but just to create anticipation for the next episodes, is the fact that most of what you see around us here in the walls are actually fossils, fossilized body parts, and a lot more about that when we can go into the detail of it.
Stay tuned.
So it'll make sense. So I guess we've covered more or less what we need to cover for now.
I think so.
This beautiful afternoon sunset,
Which now you're staring into.
which I'm now staring into, but it's okay. I like it. And yeah, thanks, John Paul, for coming to share. We hope to do quite a few more of these recordings on your visit now. And until next time,
Ciao.
adios.